In this section, we're going to talk about factories, sometimes referred to as services. Services and controllers often work very closely together. The purpose of a controller is to be very responsive and dynamically update our DOM based on different inputs and feedback and data that interacts with our view. The purpose of a service then is to free up our controller to be able to do that. The most common way that services free up our controllers is by taking on more costly operations and then providing the result of those operations to our controller once the operation is complete. This is going to make a lot more sense in a later part of this course where we talk about Firebase and API requests. But for now, we'll just take a look at how to incorporate services in a relatively trivial example into our application. So I've gone ahead and cleaned up our view from the previous section by removing the unordered list and table elements from it and just keeping the paragraph with our ng-repeat directive. Let's go to our app.js file and build out our service and controller from scratch for this example. The first thing we're going to do is add a factory to our application, and we do that by calling the angular.factory method, which accepts the name of our service, in this case my service, as well as the function definition. This should all look very similar to how we add controllers to our Angular application. But a key difference here is that our service function should actually return something, and it should return an object of functions that we want to be made available to the controllers that use this service. So in this example, I'm just going to include a getWidgets function. And that getWidgets function is something that we're going to need to define within the myService function. So we simply define this function getWidgets and then return it as part of our object that a controller will then be able to use. So it can just simply call getWidgets so long as it incorporates the myService factory as a dependency. And what that looks like is adding a controller to our Angular application called myController and including a dependency injection of both the $scope, as we saw before, and now the myService service. And then in our function definition for that, we're going to call myService.getWidgets. So we pass in myService as a dependency, and Angular knows what myService is because we registered it as part of our application, and we call the .getWidgets method because the myService service returns an object which contains a definition, a function definition for getWidgets. We assign that to our $scope.widgets property, and now our ng-repeat directive should work just as it did before. Let's go to our browser to ensure that that's true. And indeed it is. We have two paragraph elements that contain both of our widgets.